Okay, good evening, everyone. So we are here for our new subject, goods and services tax. If you remember in the previous class, we discussed about how this subject or how this tax has evolved. We studied some brief history about the evolution of taxes in India, and then we went on to the technical part of this topic, that is the difference between direct and indirect tax, and then how India, which is a federal structure, has divided the power not only of taxes but of everything between center and the state using Schedule 7, read with Article 246, whereby there are three lists. List 1, the union list, list 2, the state list, and list 3, the concurrent list. List 1 enumerates the areas where it will be the exclusive power of center. List 2 enumerates the list where it is the exclusive power of the state. And list 3 is the concurrent list where both are given powers concurrently, but only one at a time would be exercising. Now, when we were discussing this question as to GST is levied under which of these lists, the answer is none of these lists, because GST is a joint tax. It is not a concurrent tax, because even in concurrent, at a given point of time, only one parliament, either the center or the state, has the power to levy. So GST is not that type of tax. GST is a concurrent, a joint tax and not a concurrent tax. Manish जी, सर कुछ लिंक में प्रॉब्लम है क्या? क्योंकि अभी तक कोई भी ज्वाइन नहीं हुआ है, ऐसा तो होना नहीं चाहिए था। हाँ, क्योंकि वरना
मनीष जी 2 मिनट दीजिए, कुछ लिंक में प्रॉब्लम है, उसको हम अपडेट कर रहे हैं।
वही मुझे भी वही लगा।
हाँ।
सो एक बार रिकॉर्डिंग स्टॉप कर दीजिएगा, फिर मे बी विल स्टार्ट
Recording
अफ्रेश देन।
stopped.
हम फिर वापस अफ्रेश स्टार्ट। Good evening, everyone. See, you have got a practical experience of what people face in GST. So when you will be joining your articleship after your inters, and when you will start working in the GST portal, you will find this type of issue multiple times. We call it as the technical glitch or the technical issue. So uh, maybe this wasn't planned from our side, but somehow it was destined that you should get the actual practical feel of how the GST portal works and how you face such technical glitches in the GST portal. So this was a short experience of that. So I welcome all of you all to our second session of this topic of GST. I'm sure whatever we discussed in the previous class, all the discussions, all the technical pointers, all the Q&A, I'm sure everything is very well through. Still, if you have any queries, you have any doubts, I'm there to answer them. And today we will go to some of the aspects from the module. I've covered many of them when I was explaining you the conceptual part. But now, through the module, we will complete this particular topic. So yes, very good evening, Pragati, Hansika, Nilesh, Vivek, Dhanlakshmi, Harsh, Purva, Bhavani, Lavanya, Karan, Surinder, Tina, Nikunj, Divya, Satish, Lohit, Nitin, Veerashri, Manish, Anjum, Ananya, Pavan, Malia Patro, Harshal, Vemuri Janvi, Shri Raksha, Pavan Mahato, Pavan Kumar, Mohammad Sajid, Hemin, Maharaja, Shridhar, Harshal, Dhruv. Yes, everyone, very good evening. Yes, Sandhya. Yes, Tharunika TS. Yeah, hi, everyone. So, Bhavani, I'll take your doubt since you are saying it is relating to DTC. Let me take it a bit later. Let me first start with the GST part. So, Maithili, I'll answer your query also, but just allow me some time. Let me just start the topic. So, yesterday we went through the brief history of taxes. Then we went into the technical part of difference between direct and indirect taxes. Then the most important part, the federal structure under which India is operating today, whereby the power is distributed between center and state. And through Article 246 of our Constitution, read with Schedule 7, the power is divided between the center and the state using three lists. List 1, which is the exclusive power of center, which is called as the union list. List 2, exclusive power of the state. And list 3, concurrent, where both are given powers, but one will exercise at a time. GST, as we discussed, is not falling in any of these lists because it cannot be either individual power or exclusive power to one of the governments, nor it is a power which is like concurrent, where only one will exercise. It is rather a joint power. So, in order that GST can be levied jointly by both center and state together, we introduced a new Article 246A in the Constitution, which is overriding Article 246 and some other articles. So, automatically, it is also overriding Schedule 7. Then we discuss that we shifted from origin based to destination based to comply with international regulations. And before GST, there were two types of transaction, interstate, intrastate. Same continues after GST. Now, if it is an intrastate transaction, intrastate means where the goods or services remain within the same state, they are not traveling to another state. In such a case, you levy half of the GST by the name CGST, which is of the central government, half by the respective state SGST, which is of that particular state. And when it is an interstate transaction where the goods or services are traded between two different states or two different union territories or one union territory and one state, in such a case, we levy the complete GST rate by the single name IGST, which is firstly collected by the center and later half of it is given to the destination state following our destination based consumption tax principle. Then, since we shifted from origin to destination, the manufacturing states who were having good quantum of manufacturing and who were earning revenue in the origin based scenario were going to face huge losses. So, to compensate them and to give them hand holding for 5 years, we introduced a concept called as compensation to states. Now, this compensation would be paid by the center, but how would center get money to pay this? So for this, the center would levy an additional tax over and above the basic GST. An additional tax would be levied by the name compensation to states cess. And this is also now going to be discontinued from 1st of Feb. Now, since GST has to be levied jointly, the powers have to be exercised jointly. How these powers are jointly exercised? By forming a joint body, which is called as the GST Council. This body has a representation from each state. So every state's finance minister or revenue minister is one of the members, and this is headed by the central finance minister, who is presently Nirmala Sitharaman ji. So this is how the GST Council has come into existence, and today, whatever you are studying in GST, whatever amendments you see in GST, all have coming through the council. So this is what is the role of the council. And okay, Lavanya is asking, sir, are these three same? Recipient state, consumption state, destination state. Okay. So firstly, destination and consumption state are definitely the same. Now, as far as recipient state is concerned, in 90% of the cases, the place where the recipient is, that is also the destination state. However, there are 10% scenarios where recipient may be in Maharashtra, but the destination may be in Goa. This you'll get to know when we study the concept of place of supply. So you will get the technical answer of this when we visit the chapter of place of supply. Fine. Okay. ठीक है. Summary of all the articles related to GST. Okay, Balamurugan has given us the summary. Legislative power 246A, interstate 269A, GST Council 271A, definition 366 bracket 12A, state taxation limit 286, revenue distribution 279. Good. Only the last point, taxation entries are no more in 7th schedule. As far as GST is concerned, we are not having any reference to 7th schedule. Yes, right? Yes, Pawan.
हेलो सर.
Yes, Pawan, tell me.
कल हम लोगों ने सर इंट्रा स्टेट एंड इंटर स्टेट जीएसटी के बारे में तो समझ लिया था सर. एक सर क्वेश्चन मेरे मन में से आ रहा था. इफ सर अगर मैं बायर हूँ, ओके, और फर्दर मुझे गुड्स को सेल करना है, सपोज दैट सर मैं झारखंड से हूँ, ठीक है, आप महाराष्ट्र से हैं, और मेरा जो फर्दर जिसे मैं सप्लाई करने वाला हूँ वो बिहार से है, तो सर इस केस में जीएसटी किसको मिलेगा सर?
See, इस केस में firstly there will be two transactions, one between you and me and the second between you and Bihar, correct?
Okay, हाँ yes sir.
तो फर्स्ट ट्रांजैक्शन में मैं जब टैक्स लगाऊंगा तो टैक्स आपके स्टेट को जाएगा बिकॉज यू आर द डेस्टिनेशन स्टेट.
Yes sir.
और फिर बाद में जब आप उसे फर्दर फॉरवर्ड करेंगे तो वो टैक्स आपके स्टेट से ट्रेवल होके जाएगा बिहार में, एंड फाइनली the tax will go to Bihar because in your example Bihar is the last consumption state.
Okay.
But there are two parts, there are two legs. So leg wise transaction जाएगा. So मेरे से आपको जाएगा तब झारखंड will be the consumption state and in the next leg Bihar will be the consumption state.
But sir, लेकिन सर काफी बार ऐसा होता है कि मैं गुड्स रिसीव ना करके डायरेक्ट मैं बोल देता हूँ कि आप मेरा जो
still I know that it is called as bill to ship to, वो आगे एक चैप्टर में आएगा, बट स्टिल बिल टू शिप टू में भी बिल्स तो दो बनेंगे ना.
हाँ ये सर, बिल्स तो दो ही बनेंगे.
तो जब दो बार बिल्स बनेंगे तो दो बार आपको जीएसटी लायबिलिटी चेक करना है, दो बार इंटरस्टेट इंट्रास्टेट चेक करना है, तो दो बार आपको प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई चेक करके डेस्टिनेशन चेक करके आप दो बार उसका टैक्स लायबिलिटी निकालोगे.
सर कंक्लूजन यही है, मतलब जीएसटी जहाँ कंज्यूम होगा, सॉरी गुड्स जहाँ कंज्यूम होगा उसी को,
यस फाइनली
जीएसटी मिलेगा ना.
बीच में मे बी वो किसी एक स्टेट के पास जाए मगर फाइनली इट विल गो टू दैट स्टेट वेयर द कंजम्पशन इज.
Where the consumption is, GST will live.
Finally.
Thank you sir. Thank you sir.
Yes. Okay. Now we go to the module and we take up some concepts from the module. जो हमारे कल हो चुके हैं that we will leave and we will only take up the new ones. Now यहाँ पे एक कॉन्सेप्ट आया है कि GST is a value added tax. Now what is this value added tax and then what is this continuous chain of credits? अब ये समझने के लिए I will take a practical example. This will slightly be technical, so I will request everyone's complete attention to me for next 15 minutes. So there is a manufacturer. Let us say the manufacturer is from the state of Tamil Nadu. The manufacturer manufactures goods and sells to his distributor. Distributor is, let us say, in the state of Maharashtra. Distributor further gives it to wholesaler. Wholesaler is, let us say, in the state of MP. And then goods are sorry. From there, they are sold to retailer. Retailer is, let us say, in the state of Delhi. And finally, retailer gives to customer in Delhi. This is how the whole transaction is. Now, in this, I'm going to write certain terms. Purchase cost plus value addition. This is your total price on this GST at the rate of 10%. This becomes your. Now, please understand this transaction. So जो first person है manufacturer, उसका सेल प्राइस है 100. अब उसने कितने में परचेज किया, वैल्यू एडिशन क्या किया, हम उसमें नहीं जाते बिकॉज उसके पास रॉ मटेरियल बहुत सारे रहेंगे और उसका फाइनल प्रोडक्ट एक ही बना. सो मैं फाइनल प्रोडक्ट से शुरू कर रहा हूँ. लेट अस से वी कंटिन्यू आवर यस्टरडेज एग्जांपल, हेडफोन्स. So it is the boat company's manufacturing unit in Tamil Nadu, and it is manufacturing headphones where the sale price of the headphone is 100. Let us for simplicity assume GST is 10%, though let me clarify there is no such rate in GST like 10%, right? Yes, whoever started today may continue, no problem at all. Yes, this is supply chain, correct. Now, first transaction where the manufacturer is selling goods to distributor, right? In this case, GST कौन सा लगेगा अभी हम उसमें नहीं जा रहे. We are not going for the breakup of GST. I am trying to explain you something जिससे आपको तीन concepts पता चलेंगे. So, in this case, at the first leg, the GST levied is 10. Now, if I am showing the calculation here, manufacturer, distributor, wholesaler, retailer. Output tax minus input tax. This is tax payable to government. Now at manufacturer, the output tax is 10. There would be some input tax because there would be purchases, but I'm ignoring that because data is not given. So manufacturer is paying 10 rupees to the government, and this 10 rupees, please understand, manufacturer is adding to his price and collecting this whole amount from the buyer, who is the distributor sitting in Maharashtra. Now, interestingly, when the buyer is purchasing these goods, the buyer is paying 110 rupees to the manufacturer. But for buyer, the purchase cost is 100. Why? Because in this 110, the 10 rupees tax which he has paid to manufacturer becomes his input tax, which he will be able to recover back later. How he will be able to recover back, you will understand here. Now, whatever expenses he's incurring plus whatever is his profit margin, let us say he adds 20% to his cost. So his selling price becomes 120. Again, the GST rate is 10%, so it comes to 12, and this is 132. Now, interestingly, distributor's output tax is 12. Output tax means tax on his sale. But he has already paid 10 rupees at the time of his purchase. So now he will not have to pay that 10 rupees to the government. He will have to pay only the difference 2 rupees to the government. So here at first level, government got 10. At second level, the government is only getting 2. Correct? Now, when the goods go from distributor to wholesaler, wholesaler has paid entire 132. However, again for wholesaler, cost is only 120. The 12 rupees tax which he paid at the previous stage becomes his input tax, which he can adjust and recover later. Now, his profit margin is, let us say, rupees 50 or 50 I'll keep for retailer. So let us say his profit margin is rupees 30. Now this includes his expenses plus profit margin, profit, net profit both. So his value addition is 30. So his selling price is 150. Again, he will charge 15% GST. So his total bill amount will be 165. He will recover this 165 from the retailer. So now his output tax, wholesaler's output tax is 15. However, what he has to pay to the government is only 3 rupees. Now finally goods reach the retailer. The retailer has paid 165 to the wholesaler, but again for him the cost is 150 because this 15 rupees tax is his input tax which he will be able to recover later. Now his expenses plus profit margin is 50, so his final sale price becomes 200, on which he charges GST of 20. So you can say MRP is 220, and this 220 he will recover from his customer. Now here his output tax is 20, but he has already paid 15 to the wholesaler. So he has to pay only 5 rupees to the government. Now this is how any business transaction flows. Somebody said that this is supply chain. Okay, you can call it a supply chain, but it is only one side supply chain, but fine. Now what all things we have to understand from here? The first thing that I want to explain you over here is, now what our module says, the first thing about GST that our module is saying is that GST is a value addition tax. Now theoretically we can understand it, okay, it is levied on value addition, वगैरह, but what it exactly means, that you'll understand from here. If you see at every stage, what is the value addition? Government has got tax only on that value addition. See, the GST rate is 10%. And the government is getting 10% of the value addition only. So effectively, the tax is paid only on the value addition. That is how much extra you are adding value over and above what you have purchased from outside. So first point is GST is a value addition tax. Why? When you do this type of calculation of GST, what you are effectively doing is you are only paying the net amount to the government, and this net amount represents the amount on your value addition. So GST rate is 10%. If you apply it on the value addition amount, you will get to know that you have paid exactly that amount. So that is why first point, which is the feature of GST, is that GST is a value addition tax. Now, what is the second point? Second point is GST offers comprehensive continuous chain of tax credits. Now, what is this continuous chain of tax credits? Let us understand again from this example. Now, in this example, every person, why he was not paying the full output tax? Because whatever he had paid on the input, that he was able to subtract. So whatever input tax he had paid while purchases, the input tax he had paid was his benefit, was a credit to him. Credit means benefit. This is what is the second point, which says that in GST there will be continuous chain of credit. What is continuous chain of credit? Which means whatever tax you paid on your input side or purchase side, that will be allowed to you as a benefit when you have to pay the output tax. To that extent, you will pay the output tax less. So that is why whatever tax you pay on the input side is also called as your input tax credit, because to this extent you will have to pay your output tax less. To this extent your tax liability will be reduced. So it is your benefit, and accounting provision says credit all the benefits. So since the amount which you paid on the input side, the tax which you paid at the time of purchase is a benefit to you, hence it is called as input tax credit. And that is why it is said that GST offers a continuous chain of credits. So whatever you pay at the previous level, you can be adjusting at the later level. Now this third point, burden is borne by the final consumer. Again, understand it from this. Now what we see over here, every person is levying some tax. But pay attention, what is the final price of the goods? 200. What is the total tax on the goods? 20. I repeat, the total tax on the goods is 20. How do you come to know this? See what government has received at each stage. If you add it, the total tax which the government has received from first stage to the last stage is 20. And interestingly, this total tax is what is recovered from the end consumer. So it is always the end consumer who bears the entire burden, not only the last tax. In fact, in between, nobody has paid any single tax from the pocket, because every tax they have collected from their customer. Every person has collected tax from their customer. And finally, the total tax which the government is getting right from first step of manufacturing to the last step of retail, the entire tax is borne by the final consumer. Chalo, I'll go to chat box. I can see multiple chats being added. Pragati at the end consumer said, sir, I just started. So yes, I already said, Manisha, you can join, no problem. You'll understand everything. Pragati says, can claim output tax credits or double taxation can remove. Yes, that is what is the point. Pavan Mahato, value added tax, adjust from input tax and output tax, balance amount paid. Yes. Final burden goes to consumer, goes to end consumer. Entire burden is on customer. Yes. Now Manisha is asking, so sir, if end consumer is registered, can he claim credit? Yes. So if end consumer is registered, it means this is not the end, because he will consume this for doing something else. So it means this chain will continue, Manisha. So you're right. If the end consumer is registered, he will get input tax credit of this. And when he will further use it for selling any of his goods, let us say I am the end consumer. Now let us say this is a laptop which manufacturer made. It came to distributor, wholesaler, retailer, and I as a chartered accountant purchase this laptop. Now actually I'm using the laptop, but since I am also registered, I am using this to provide my output, which is now my consultancy services, my professional services. Now this becomes my input for giving my output, which is though a different thing, but now the chain continues. That is why the second point is that it is a continuous chain of credits. See, Bhavani is asking a very important question. Ki, sir, how GST is better than VAT? Now, firstly, what is VAT? See, VAT was, if you remember my yesterday's explanation, VAT was the previous law's sales tax. In the previous law, the sales tax was called as VAT. I would have written here somewhere. So this sales tax, which was levied in the previous law, later on was called as VAT. Now, how GST is better than VAT? Now, see, under the old laws, see, that is why this yesterday's explanation, all this history is very relevant to understand our today's point. So, under old laws, you had some taxes which were in the union list, like excise, like service tax, and you had some taxes which were in the state list, like sales tax, which was called as VAT. Now, this what I'm explaining, set off. This is called as set off. When you subtract the input tax from the output tax, it is called as set off. Now, this set off was allowed in the earlier tax law also, but there was a restriction. VAT could be set off only against VAT, and excise service tax could be set off only against excise service tax. In short, central taxes could be set off, but with central taxes, and state tax could be set off with state tax. Now, answering your question, Veda, how VAT and GST are differing. Now take my example only. let us continue this example. Now I purchased this laptop. Now, had this been the VAT era, that is the pre-GST era, I would have paid sales tax, that is VAT, on the purchase of laptop. And now what I am going to provide is service. So my output tax would be service tax, but my input tax is VAT. I was not allowed the credit. So that tax which I have paid on my laptop became a cost to me. But the same thing which we discussed just now in the present scenario, if I am purchasing the laptop and I am a registered person because I am providing further output services, the GST credit of this laptop in this example 20 rupees will be allowed to me, which I will be able to set off against my GST on services. So now the burden which I was getting under VAT is not there in GST. This is how GST is far, far better than VAT. Reason one. Second reason why it is better than the earlier laws. Earlier laws has multiple laws. VAT, every state VAT was different. Now, visualize a person like me who is having his presence in multiple state. Now, because of today's internet and so many things, I am providing services virtually across India in every part. I regularly travel every part. Now, for a person like me, a challenge was if I am in VAT, I will have to take registration of every state because every state VAT law is different. I will have to file returns in every state. So it was a big, big headache. Plus, for my central taxes, separate registration, separate returns. So there were multiple registrations, multiple returns, multiple compliance. So this is how also why GST is better than VAT. Dia is asking, sir, my books are relevant for Jan. Can I prefer these for my self-study? Definitely, my beta. I always repeat, you are you have no option but to read the book which you have. Even if your attempt comes late, we regularly post the updated module. If your attempt is late, once you post the updated module, you can download it and start using that. But for the time being, use this. See, it is not that everything will change. Few sections, few provisions change. That anyways, as a chartered accountant, now you will have to be in a habit of that whatever you have studied, you should be prepared of making amendments. So whatever books you have, you continue that. But yes, if you are not of Jan attempt, but the books are of Jan attempt, I'll request that download the latest material and start using that. Is it the same as set off? Yes. So this is what is called as set off. Purav is asking, sir, if at the end entire burden is on consumer, then why some business owners avoid paying GST? Very good question. See, if entire burden is on consumer, why some businesses avoid paying GST? See, there are, if I can merge all the reasons into two, Purav. Reason one is, even if it is on consumer, once I add the GST in my bill, it increases the final sale price, because of which the same thing becomes costly in the eyes of the consumer. So let us say you are buying a laptop. You as a student will not going to get ITC input tax credit because you are not going to further use it in any outward supply. You are going to use it for your personal studies. So for you, that added GST portion is like a extra cost. Now, it is you who wants GST, it is you who wants the goods at a lower price. So it is you who first generally presses me कि sir बिना बिल के चलेगा क्या, मैं बिल नहीं दूंगा तो आप बिल मत दो, मैं कैश में पैसे देता हूँ, so इससे आपका GST बच जाएगा. So first reason for people avoiding tax, we are talking about GST, is because the consumer wants to avoid it because ultimate burden is on consumer. And when consumer says, then the business owner is fine. Why? Because of second reason. What is the second reason? See, GST is again linked with income tax. If I give you the bill, this will also be added to my income, and to that extent my income tax will increase. So I am also benefited by not giving you the bill and making it a kacha transaction or a black transaction, that is by evading tax, because it will also save my income tax liability. So that is why beta ultimately people end up doing all this. And then the third reason is now it has become a habit. Means now it is somehow everybody has become so self-centered that they do not want to do anything which is going beyond their uh, benefits. So many times tax is always not looked upon people as something good. In fact, they always look at tax negatively. So that has also become a mindset why people avoid tax. Harshal is asking, sir, it means ITC, right, sir, at all chain input tax will get to respective input supply? Harshal, your question is not clear, beta. Please make it simple. There are lots to credit, not receive in VAT. Yes, Pawan, correct. VAT or GST is not tax, it's the concept. No, see, I agree to your point, Praveen Kumar, that VAT is a concept, but VAT is also the name of a tax. So earlier sales tax was renamed as VAT, and GST is also a name. So it is a tax only, it is not only a concept. In GST, set of input and output adjusted. Example, purchase biscuit from shop, I'll consume it, I'll pay GST because I become final consumer. Correct. That's why VAT called as tax on tax. Somewhat, yes. VAT में tax के ऊपर tax लगता था. Correct. E-way bill in invoicing system. Yes, Pawan Mato. So what is e-way bill invoicing system you are talking about here? That is yet to come. It is much later concept. Maithili, sir, my doubt is if supplier missed to file some bills in which that bills only the burden in the side of buyer. Correct, sir. Sorry, Maithili, I didn't get your question. If supplier missed to file some bills in which that bills only the burden in the side of buyer. Sorry, but I am not able to understand. Sridhar, if I'm not registered but I sell this product, then I record GST amount. No, 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 Sridhar. If you are not registered, you cannot legally collect GST. Harshal, purchase the goods from supplier is ITC. So if a recipient is registered and purchasing for business, you get ITC, Harshal. वालियो पात्रो कॉन्ट्रैक्टर के बेसिक्स में आईटीसी कैसे क्लेम होता है सर कॉन्ट्रैक्टर के बेसिक्स में आई डिडंट गेट दिस पॉइंट सी इफ कॉन्ट्रैक्टर इज रजिस्टर्ड अंडर जीएसटी contractor is supplying his construction service on the input side he has cement steel so whatever GST he is paying on cement steel that becomes his input tax credit which he will set off when he will raise invoice of his construction service. Manisha, even though the government is so intelligent, but still the celebrities escape tax by stating their income as agree. Manisha, now those are old things. So don't worry, they are already taken care of. And now what you are hearing about those are old cases which you are getting to hear now. Pura. So say for a sole proprietor, factory sector, their income tax is deducted in the hands of the firm itself. So GST plus income tax and we said, you can say so, Pura. Fine, but let us not get into reasons why people are avoiding tax. See, that is not our point of discussion right now. Our first, your approach should be to understand what
Hello,
the tax
sir.
law is. Yes, Maithili.
Sir, my doubt is, can you explain once again burden borne by final consumer, sir?
See, beta. See, here what has happened eventually, everybody was paying some tax to the government here 10, 12, 13, 5 something. So, total how much tax is given to government, including all stages? 20. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
So, first person paid 10, second person
Tax
paid
paid to
2.
government.
So ultimately, government got total how much? 20. And if you see in this, finally, how much tax the retailer is recovering from the customer? 20. So ultimately, the entire burden of 20 has come on the
Okay.
customer only. Correct?
Oh,
Tell me what is
okay.
your
Yes,
question
sir.
now?
But the supply is only adjusting the GST from consumer, correct, sir?
No,
Or
no.
wrong?
See, understand one thing. See, every person, like manufacturer, whatever was his output tax, he's adding in the bill. So he's collecting from his customer and paying to government. So nothing is going out of his pocket. Now everybody is shifting the burden. See, we have understood this in the previous class also, and generally we talk about indirect tax that the burden is shifted. How the burden is shifted? I add the tax in my bill amount and I collect it from you and give it to government. Now, when I'm collecting the tax from you and giving to government, nothing is going out of my pocket. It is not pinching me. Are you getting this?
Yes, sir. But it is only done through GST filing. Yes, sir, or no?
Sorry, beta. It is done.
It is done only through GST filing or
What is done, beta, through
GST
GST
filing through
filing?
bills.
So, beta, when I am
Supply
giving you the
bills and
bill,
purchase
when I
bills
am
are
giving you the
filed.
bill, I will add the GST in that and I'll collect it from you. Correct, na? I'm not getting what is
Yes,
your,
sir.
still the question in your mind. What is confusing you? I'm not getting it.
Burdens, a burden borne by final consumer.
What is the meaning of burden? Who is going to, who, from
Consumer
whose
means
pocket the tax is going? That is the meaning of burden. Correct? Firstly, understand the meaning of
yes,
the
sir.
sentence burden.
Yes, sir. But
Yes. Tell me.
in this word, consumer means the buyer or seller, sir.
See, consumer is always the buyer, beta. How can seller be consumer?
Yes, yes. But bills are not comes in this discussion or
What?
bills are not comes in discussion or not, sir.
I'm still not able to understand what bills are. Sorry, I'm not clear with your question, beta. Allow me to proceed first. Let
Okay,
me
sir. I am
complete this
also
point. We'll come back to your query, beta.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now the next point is no cascading effect of taxes. What is the meaning of this? See, what is cascading? Cascading means where the tax get added in cost and I am charging you, it becomes your cost. Then when you are further charging, you add further tax on that. So when there is tax on tax, it is called as cascading effect. Now all that is removed. This was all there in the earlier scenario, that is the VAT scenario. Now they have also tried to give a similar example of what I just explained you in a simpler format, right? Balio, what is reverse charge? Please allow me one or two chapters because if I start explaining such technical concepts now, it will be confusing for everyone. That you'll get to know in the third chapter, beta. So in simple words, where instead of supplier, the recipient goes and pays tax to the government, that is reverse charge. That much only I can tell you right now. Harshal, 20 bond to final consumer. Okay. Recently, some good prices were reduced by GST Council, but chemist is not passing to final consumer. What benefits is the chemist making extra profit? Because if the tax is reduced, see, understand this, if the chemist is having old stock, the MRP was calculated keeping the old GST rate in mind, which is the higher rate. Now, if the GST is reduced, but he is still selling at the old price, how he is benefiting? He is getting that, what, let us say 12% became 5%. Now he has to pay 5% only, but MRP was decided keeping 12% in mind. So in that particular case, that extra 7% is his profit. This is what the chemist is getting if he is not passing on it to the final consumer. Harshal, if in this chain any are unregistered, yes, so if anybody is unregistered, then tax cannot be passed on. Then there will be cascading. Veerashri, sir, can ITC be claimed only if purchase is related to business? Yes, 100%. Okay, perfect. Now let us proceed with some more concepts. So what was the need to bring GST? See, there was some deficiencies. There were some, you can say, limitation shortcomings of the old tax regime, that is the sales tax regime, value added tax regime. To overcome them, we had to bring in GST. So GST was brought in to cure the ills of the erstwhile tax regime. Now, what were the erstwhile tax regime ills or mistakes? So first is certain transactions were subject to double taxes. Now, what is this? I just explained you that earlier there was a separate tax for center, there was a separate tax for state. Now, it used to happen that in some cases, both taxes were levied, sales tax and excise, because one is of center, one is of state, sales tax and service tax. So this was leading to double taxation. Second, this I just explained, Senvat trade did not include chain of value addition in the distributed trade after the stage of production. Now this may appear slightly technical. It simply means what I just explained, that if I have purchased by paying excise duty or service tax, which is my input tax, and on my output tax I have to pay VAT, I was not allowed set off. So set off was not allowed between central tax and state tax. And the effect of this was it was leading to increase in prices and cascading effect. Though CENVAT and state level VAT were value added. So both were made on value added principle only. But the problem was cross set off was not allowed. This was the biggest flaw in the old regime. So sales tax, that is VAT, could not be set off against service tax or excise. On service tax, excise could not be set off against VAT. Then there were several taxes in states. Now in different states, there were different taxes. So it wasn't that it was only VAT. Some had VAT plus luxury tax plus entertainment tax. So there were multiple taxes. So this was again a very big challenge. As a businessman, I had to, even if I'm doing business in one state, within one state also I had to comply with the different laws. Every law had different registration, different department, different returns, different rates. So it was very cumbersome, very difficult for me to understand all the taxation laws. By merging this into one, now you have to study only one taxation law. So that has made the taxation simple. VAT on goods was not integrated with tax on services. This is the same laptop example. So when I purchased laptop, I used to pay sales tax VAT, but on my output side, I was to pay service tax. I was not getting the cross set off, and this was leading to cascading effect. CST was another source of distortion. CST is a central sales tax. So when there was interstate trade, yesterday in the previous class we discussed, on that you were paying CST. CST is a central sales tax. Again, the problem was CST set off was not allowed. So whatever CST you were paying, that was also added as a cost. So these were the ills, these were the deficiencies of the previous tax laws, and all these have been removed by bringing in GST. Now, let us understand the GST framework. Now, as we discussed in the previous class, India is a federal structure, which means that power is divided between center and state both. Now, earlier tax laws, as we discussed in the previous class, some taxes were of center, some were of state. Now, when we wanted to subsume, when we wanted to merge these taxes and make single tax, the first thing that we were required to do was give joint powers. That is, on the same tax, both central will also have the power to levy the tax and state will also have the power to levy the tax at the same time jointly. So first feature about GST framework is that GST is a dual tax, which means both center and state together are levying the tax. That is what it means. Firstly, beta, what is your name? Only dash is appearing. Can you please change it, or can you mention what is your name? Because I'm not getting your name, so it is only appearing as a dash. So kindly please put your name or type your name so that I'll get to know I'm talking to whom. Then the second feature is now we have GST by these names. And I explained this in the previous class again, that if the transaction is intrastate, that is within the same state only the transaction is, then half is levied by the name CGST and balance half by SGST or UTGST. So you will levy C plus S or C plus UT. And if it is interstate, then the whole GST is levied by the name IGST. So between interstate and intrastate, this is the difference. Now, legislative framework. Legislative means the laws. Now, when you talk about the laws, you will find that in GST, we have one CGST Act, one IGST Act, and then we have for every state a separate SGST Act. And then for all our UTs, we have the UTGST Act. So these are the different acts that we are having. Now, interestingly, there is a very interesting point about the definition of state. Now, generally, what is the difference between a union territory and a state? So, where the regime, where the power is of the center is running that area, we call that area as union territory. And where there is a separate state government, we call it as a state. But do you know that in India, there are few union territories, which are union territories, but they are governed by a separate state government or or state parliament. Example, Delhi is one such place. Jammu Kashmir is the second such place, which is a union territory, but which is having a separate state government. Now, in GST, wherever there is a union territory and it is having a state government like Delhi, in such cases, we will call it as state only and we will not call it as union territory. So, in short, what will be called as union territory under GST? Only those union territories where there is no separate state government. Yes, Vivek, you're right. JNK, Puducherry, Delhi. Correct. Okay. Okay, Ahmed, no problem. No, Divya, dual GST is not concurrent. I explained this. I've been explaining this again and again. Concurrent means both are given power, but one will use the power at a time. Both cannot use. That is concurrent. GST is not like that. In case of GST, it is joint because both are using it together. So this is a very big difference between GST and concurrent. So you cannot say that GST is concurrent. It is a dual tax, not a concurrent tax. Now, for small businesses who have just come into GST, it may be challenging for them to comply with GST because GST has many procedural requirements. In such a case, there is a concept called as composition scheme. So what is a composition scheme? So if you are a business who is a small business, but you are covered under GST, in such cases, you will have an option that either you act as a big business by taking a normal registration, or if you do not want to act like a big business, taking normal registration and doing all the detailed procedures, you are given a simplified procedure scheme whereby you don't have to file monthly returns, you don't have to prepare the invoices in detail, which is applicable to a regular business. So for you, there is a simplified mechanism of doing GST. This simplified mechanism of doing GST is called as the composition scheme. We have a whole topic dedicated to who will come under composition scheme, what is the turnover limit, what are the conditions, etc. Now coming to an interesting point of registration. Now who is covered under GST? Who is required to get registered? The answer is who crosses a specific limit of turnover. Now what is that limit of turnover? The limit is 20 lakhs, but for some smaller states who are called as special category states, the limit is 10 lakhs. Secondly, those who are dealing exclusively in goods, the limit is 40 lakhs. Right now, I'm just saying it orally, but when we go to the registration chapter, you'll understand all these things in detail. Right now, you need not get into the turnover figures. What is important is the moment your business turnover crosses these limits, whatever is applicable to you, registration is compulsory. Now, important point about registration is once you are required to take registration, and when you will be required to take registration, if your turnover crosses the limits, or second, if you are doing some specific transactions. So for some specific transactions, registration has been made compulsory. Now, the point is, once you are doing GST registration, how registration is given to you? If your business is only in one state, that is, you have your shop, your office only in one state, you have to only take registration in that state. But let us say I have my office in 5 states. So if I have my business place in 5 states, see, I'm doing business with entire India. I have clients entire India, but that I need not take registration in every state. I will take registration in all those states where I have my office, my business place, my godown, my factory. So if I have my office in 5 places, I have to take registration in those 5 states only. So GST requirement is every state where you have your business, you should take a registration. Manisha, so even being UTs, Delhi Jain will be, yes, correct, Manisha. Because those UTs who are having their state government, that is the parliament, for they are treated as a state and not UT in simple words. So they will also levy SGST and not UT GST. Okay, Divya. So I hope it is clear. Yes, Bhavani, correct. Right, Harshal? Right, Kamlesh? Okay, let us proceed.
हेलो सर।
Yes, Pawan.
सर जैसे अभी आपने रजिस्ट्रेशन के बारे में बताया, ठीक है, कि सपोज सर मेरा बिजनेस झारखंड में है, तो मुझे ऑल ओवर स्टेट एंड यूटी में अगर बिजनेस करना है, तो क्या मुझे सारे यूटी एंड सारे स्टेट में रजिस्ट्रेशन देना
नहीं,
पड़ेगा?
नहीं, वही मैं एक्सप्लेन कर रहा था. आई विल रिपीट.
ओके सर।
See, today I am doing business across India. I have my clients across India. I keep on traveling. I have virtually covered each and every state, including Jammu and Kashmir, including your Ladakh, including your Manipur. I have gone to all these states in past 8 years, and I am doing business. I am having my client in every state. So, am I supposed to take registration in all the states? Answer is no.
नो।
I
ओके।
have taken registration only in those 5 states where I have my office. So आपको registration उस स्टेट में लेना है जहां पे आपका प्लेस ऑफ बिजनेस है, ना कि आप जहां पे बिजनेस कर रहे हो. इनफैक्ट टुडे let us say you are a dealer of some goods, again same mobile headset, or let us
या।
say headphones, or let us say laptops. अब आप आपके झारखंड में बैठ के पूरे इंडिया को गुड सप्लाई कर रहे हो, मे बी बिकॉज ऑफ ऑनलाइन.
ओके सर।
इसका ये मतलब नहीं है कि आपको इंडिया के हर स्टेट में रजिस्ट्रेशन लेना है. आपको सिर्फ उस जगह पे रजिस्ट्रेशन लेना है जहां पे आपका बिजनेस है.
मतलब सर मेरा बिजनेस का सर अगर ब्रांच झारखंड के अलावा अगर बिहार में है, यूपी में है,
तो
तो
आपको
क्या
बिहार
मुझे
में भी लेना पड़ेगा. अगर आपका ब्रांच
अच्छा,
बिहार में, देन यू हैव टू टेक रजिस्ट्रेशन इन बिहार
यानी
ऑल्सो.
बिल ऑफ सप्लाई से सर आई थिंक वहाँ जहाँ से बिल ऑफ सप्लाई हो रहा है वहाँ।
बेटा बिल ऑफ सप्लाई में मत पढ़ो अभी. बिल ऑफ
ओके।
सप्लाई अलग कॉन्सेप्ट है, वो इधर
ओके।
लागू ही नहीं होता है. सिंपल वर्ड्स में, जहां जहां पे आपका ऑफिस है, आपका गोडाउन है, आपका शॉप है, आपका फैक्ट्री है,
अच्छा,
आपको वहां पे रजिस्ट्रेशन लेना है.
मतलब
उसका
सर
बिल ऑफ
गोडाउन,
सप्लाई का कोई
हाँ,
लेना नहीं.
या जहाँ से, जिस गोडाउन से मतलब माल जा रहा है, गुड्स जा रहा है, वहाँ से
यस, यस, यस,
इनवॉइस,
करेक्ट.
वहाँ मुझे जीएसटी रजिस्ट्रेशन देना पड़ेगा। थैंक यू
परफेक्ट.
सर।
परफेक्ट
थैंक यू
बेटा.
सर। थैंक यू।
यस मनीषा.
सर मेरा ये क्वेश्चन है, अगर मैंने अपना पैन इंडिया रजिस्ट्रेशन करा रखा है, तो भी अगर मुझे रिस्पेक्टिव स्टेट्स में मेरी ब्रांच या फिर ऑफिस है, तो उनके लिए भी रिस्पेक्टिवली मुझे लेना पड़ेगा
See,
रजिस्ट्रेशन?
firstly, there is no pan India registration under GST. This is most important point. When you take registration in GST, आपको 15 digits GST number आता है. ये हम registration chapter में पढ़ेंगे. Over there, you will realize that this 15 digit GST number, first two digits is the state code. So let us say when I am registered in Maharashtra, my GST number of Maharashtra starts with 27, and 27 is the state code of Maharashtra. Right? So similarly, every state is given a code and your GST number will start with that code. It means GST registration is not pan India, it is state wise. And that is why you have to take registration in those states where you have your business place.
ओके सर, गॉट इट।
Fine. Now, next concept is exemption. This I'm sure everybody understands because you have studied income tax. So in income tax also, income tax is applicable on incomes, but on few incomes the government does not want tax. जिनको टैक्स नहीं चाहिए, जिन इनकम्स पे टैक्स नहीं चाहिए, so government has created a list which is called as exemption, which is under section 10 of income tax act, और उन इनकम्स के नाम वहां पे डाल दिए. So we call those incomes as exempt incomes. Similarly, under GST also, on the transactions on which the government do not want GST, they have made a notification which gives the names of all such exempt transactions. So similar to any other taxation law, GST law is also having exemption list, whereby on some transactions for which the exemption is there, you will not be required to pay GST. Seamless flow of credit, this you have understood from my example, that when one person sell goods or services to another, the tax charged by the first person becomes the credit of the second person. When the second person sells its goods and services to the third person, the tax charged by second person becomes credit of the third person. So the credit seamlessly flows. It is shifting from first person to the second person to the third person. Then you have intrastate. So now they have explained this, how this set of mechanism works. This set of mechanism you will understand as we proceed with the GST examples in the further topics. ओके, कमलेश इज आस्किंग सर ICAI registration fees और एग्जाम फॉर्म फीस पे GST लेते हैं क्या? दैट यू शुड टेल मी, बिकॉज इफ यू हैव पेड यू हैव गॉट अ रिसीट, you have got an invoice from institute. In fact, you should check this and tell me कि इस पे लेते हैं तो क्यों लेते हैं और नहीं लेते तो क्यों नहीं लेते. इनफैक्ट आपको ये मुझे पूछने की जरूरत नहीं, बिकॉज यू आर ऑलरेडी रजिस्टर्ड, सो यू शुड गो एंड चेक द इनवॉइस एंड यू शुड टेल मी कि नहीं लेते हैं उसका ये रीजन है. Right, Maitri sir, for example GRT having several branches, but they only have one registration number. No, if any person is having its branches in different places, it will require to take registration in that place, Maitri. It cannot have single registration. Yes, possibility is if all these branches are in the same state, then for same state you can have one registration. But if you have branches in different states, compulsorily you will be required to have separate registrations. Sushmita, sir, what should be done if we have different branches in same state? I just gave example. So if you have different branches in same state, then you are given choice by the law. Either you cover all branches in one registration, or for those branches you can have separate registration. So this is a choice given, but this choice is only when those branches are all in the same state. But once you have a branch outside your state, for that branch you have to compulsory take a separate registration. Sridhar, sir, if turnover is below 10 lakhs and registration mandatory or not, then it is optional beta. But if you enter into some specific transactions, then it will become mandatory. So registration is mandatory on two grounds. One is turnover and one is if you are entering into specific transactions. What is the meaning of tariff? Virashri asking. Tariff means the rate of tax. So whatever is the rate of tax, that is also called as tariff. Seamless means easily. So what one person is charging, you can get the credit easily. That is what is the meaning of seamless. Satish, threshold of 40 lakhs is for what? See, where you are only supplying goods, the threshold is 40 lakhs. But I will request you all not to right now get into the threshold, whether when 10 lakhs, when 20 lakhs, because then it will go to the chapter of registration. Still, if you are very keen, I will request you all to open the registration wala chapter. Over there, you will get to know who has 10 lakhs, who has 20 lakhs, who has 40 lakhs. But still answering your question, Satish, 40 lakhs is where you are engaged only in selling goods. You are not supplying service. It is only goods. Vivek is saying we have not studied income tax. Not a problem. I just gave one small reference, Vivek, that exemption means where the government does not want to charge tax. So it is common in income tax. It is common in every taxation law. So I gave example of income tax, but it makes no difference if you have not studied that. Although the maximum limit of 40 lakhs for goods and 20 lakhs for service, but Mr. X registered voluntarily as he expects obtaining government order, then will he be required? Yes, once you are registered under GST, whether compulsorily or voluntarily, you have to follow with all the rules of GST. So you have to also file the returns, right? Amlan beta, I'm purposefully not explaining these illustrations because for understanding these illustrations, you'll have to study GST more. So personally, my understanding is these illustrations should have come in the third chapter. So I'm purposefully not explaining. I'm explaining what is applicable to you. Please focus on the illustration which I have given. Because if I try to explain that, it will not be possible for you to understand unless you understand the next two chapters. Kamlesh, but I am again telling you, you cannot ask me this question, ki whether ICAI is taking GST or not. Please check your invoice. You will get the answer there. You should ask me the reason why they are not charging, why they are charging. You will get the reason. But first, how can you ask me? See, you are having invoice. You are registered under ICAI, na? Please check. हर्षल इज आस्किंग सर इन दिस इलस्ट्रेशन कब लोगे? बेटा मैं ये इलस्ट्रेशन नहीं लेने वाला हूँ क्योंकि ये इलस्ट्रेशन अभी आपको समझ में नहीं आएगा जब तक आपके पहले 3 चैप्टर्स नहीं होते. सो प्लीज, एनीवेज इट इज नॉट एग्जाम रिलेटेड, डोंट वरी, वो एग्जाम में नहीं पूछने वाले हैं. पर वो इलस्ट्रेशन इतना कॉम्प्लिकेटेड है कि जब तक आपको आगे का 3 चैप्टर्स नहीं मालूम है, ये और आगे के 2, आपको इलस्ट्रेशन समझेगा ही नहीं. सो व्हाई यू वांट टू हरी? Sir, do we have any facility on GST portal to practice filing returns? No, beta. Only the persons who are registered, they only can log in and file real returns. So there is no dummy type of option. Can I register of GST without filing? Yes. So Satish, you always have the option of voluntary registration. Na? Even if you're not crossing the limit, even if you are not doing any specific transaction, still voluntarily anybody can register. Akhila, business established out of India but branches in India, GST levied per branch. See, whatever sales the branch will make from India, on that GST will be applicable and the branch will have to take registration. Yes, Balu is asking what is HSN. I'm just coming to HSN, beta. In a few minutes, I'll come to that point, beta. Virendra is asking, sir, is if head office Delhi send goods to Lucknow, both have different state registration, so goods are taxable. Yes, when you are having separate registration and your one registered office send goods or services to another office, you will have to pay GST. So obviously, beta, see, if in case of inflation, what happens? Your price increases. GST rate is same. Let us say today GST rate is 18%, but price increase from 100 to 120 because of inflation. Now you tell me whether GST will increase or not. The percentage is 18 only. But if the price increases because of inflation, 100 becomes 120, Vivek, you tell me whether GST will increase or not. Simple. So you get the answer. Correct? Now, the next word is GST Common Portal. What is this GST Common Portal? Now, when GST was brought in, they decided that in GST, we will have nothing which will be physical. Now, what is physical? In the old tax laws, if you want to do registration, you have to go to the department physically, fill in the form by hand, submit the form and document. This is called as physical. Now everything has become electronic. Everything has become online. So when the government was introducing GST, they planned that we will introduce GST in a complete electronic format. Now this is the GST portal. Now see, what is this portal? Portal means the website. And why it is called as common portal? Because whether you are working in Assam, whether you are working in Karnataka, whether you are working in Gujarat, whether you are having business in Delhi, for everyone, you will have the same website. That is why they have called it as common portal. Now here you are seeing two tabs, register and login. So those who are already registered, they will press in the login. Now when you press in the login, they will ask you your user ID password. And through this user ID password, you will be able to go in and do everything in the GST. But if you're a new person and you have just want to get into GST and you want to take registration, then you'll press this registration and then you'll follow the steps for doing registration. So this is what is the common portal, which is also called as the GSTN, GST network. So this portal through which across India, people are following everything in GST. That is what is the common portal or the GST portal. Very good, Value. Fine, students. Okay. So see, they have also taken a screenshot and pasted here. Now, GSPs and ASPs. Now you have the full forms here. GSP is GST Suvidha Provider. ASP is Application Service Provider. Now what are these? Now see, when you have few number of transactions, you can directly go to the GST portal and do the working yourself. But when you have lakhs of transactions, If you try to use the GST portal directly, it may not be possible because the GST portal cannot be operated directly from your individual laptop with lakhs of transaction. It will not support. So in order that you are able to do luminous transactions through your computer on the GST portal, there is this facility or there is these agencies, if I can use the word, called as GSPs and ASPs. So these are the agencies who will interact between the taxpayer and the GST portal. Now see, right now you can directly go to the GST portal and do everything because you are not having that luminous transactions, that number of transactions. But as I said, if you have lakhs of transactions every day, then instead of you directly going to GST portal, you use a GSP or an ASP, and through them you do all your filings. That makes your filing much easier and faster. Now, as we just discussed, compensation cess, what it is now you all know that in order to support those states who were mainly manufacturing state, who were earning good revenue in the pre-GST era. Why? Because it was origin based, and after shifting to GST, this origin based was going to become destination based, so they were going to suffer huge losses. So to compensate them, the government said we will give you compensation of the loss in the first 5 years of GST, and this ended on 30th of June 2022. However, government continued the compensation levy, and it is now going to get over by 1st of February. Now we come to the definition of GST. Now what is GST? GST is a tax which is levied on supply of all goods and services except alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Now interestingly, GST cannot be levied on alcoholic liquor. Please pay attention. GST cannot be levied on alcoholic liquor. Why? If you remember my previous class in which I showed you Schedule 7, List 1, List 2. List 2, which is exclusively the state list, covers medical, covers health, covers security, safety, and it also covers liquor. So liquor is exclusively the subject matter of state, and hence it can never come under GST. But interestingly, if you read this whole point, it is saying alcoholic liquor for human consumption. But if you are knowing this, liquor is used in many other places as well, like it is used in making medicines. Certain liquor items like beer is used in making shampoos, which is a toilet item. So where liquor is used for making any other product other than for human consumption, it is under GST. But liquor made for human consumption can never be under GST. Similarly, today, these 5 petroleum products are kept outside GST deliberately. It is not that GST cannot be levied. It is not same like the alcoholic liquor. Alcoholic liquor is a different case because of Schedule 7, List 2, it is completely outside GST. It cannot come in GST until unless you amend that Schedule 7, which is a very long process. But petroleum 5 products, as you can see, the petroleum crude, the diesel, the petrol, the aviation fuel which is used in planes, and the natural gas. All these can anytime come under GST. You should not be shocked if in next 6 months you'll find that petroleum products may not be all 5, but 1 or 2 are under GST. Because government is having that thought process that in near future, petroleum will be covered under GST, but for the time being, they have kept petroleum outside. Now, this part of your module is very important because in this part, you will be getting to know what are the old duties and taxes which are still continuing, right? So for alcoholic liquor, which I said can never come under GST, we are still levying the old taxes. So what is levied? On its manufacture, the state excise duty is levied because excise is for manufacturing, and for its sales, the old sales tax is levied, which is CST or VAT. Whereas on petroleum products, on its manufacture, central excise is levied because it is covered under the central list, and again on its sales tax, that is VAT, is levied. Interestingly, tobacco is such a product on which both GST as well as the old tax, which tax, central excise, both are levied together. So tobacco and this opium, Indian hemp, that is all these drugs, these are those products on which you are having both old as well as the new tax being levied together. So these are the products, tobacco and opium, Indian hemp, on which GST as well as old taxes are parallelly being levied. Real estate, there is no GST on sale purchase of immovable property. So if you are purchasing land or if you are purchasing a building which is completed, which is ready to use, there will be no GST. It is kept outside GST. Okay. Now I have a very interesting question for you all. But before that, I'm just seeing the chat box. Simran, what are you asking? Nee, Samiran, you are asking special economic zone compliances. What do you mean by compliances? I didn't get. Srinivas, it is written 31st March because when this module was printed, at that time there was no end date given. Now the end date given is 1st Feb. So it is 1st Feb. Very good, Nilesh. So everyone, please see what Nilesh has put in the chat relating to GST on registration fees of students. Please read that, what Nilesh has put. Valio is saying, sir, engine oil, GST is applicable. Engine oil and petrol are different, beta. Petrol is, which is used to run the vehicle. Oil is used for lubricating. On oil, there is GST. Only on petrol and diesel, there is no GST. Manisha, sir, can you show us how can we check the amendments on GST web? And when you will take income tax law class, then can you do the same, please? See, beta, for amendments, I'll show you. See, for amendments, you have to go to something called as the CBIC website. What is CBIC? It is the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs. So indirect taxes are covered under CBIC. That is the board for indirect taxes, and direct taxes are covered under CBDT. Now, when you go to these website, you will find in this website different tabs for different acts. So here you will find the tab for GST, and in the GST tab, you will have to check for the amendments. So see, here you have the GST tab, custom tab, service tax tab, central excise tab. So when you click on the GST tab, now here you have Act Rules. So when you go to these notifications, you will get the amendment. The same thing will happen in case of income tax bill. So this is how you get to know what are the amendments both under income tax and under GST. For income tax, you go to the income tax or the CBDT website, and for GST, you go to the CBIC website. Fine. कमलेश, मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट इस पे क्वेश्चन आते हैं एग्जाम में. किस पे बेटा कमलेश, किस पे क्वेश्चन आते हैं बेटा एग्जाम में? Veerashri, sir, for an office which has its head office in India and other branch in foreign country, will we take GST registration for foreign branch? No, you will not take any registration for any entity which is outside India. हाँ बेटा, टैक्सेस सबस्यूम मतलब वो जो टैक्सेस है जो जीएसटी में मर्ज हो गए, आपको उनका नाम सिर्फ याद रखना है कौन से टैक्सेस है, दैट्स इट. पूरा पेट्रोलियम प्रोडक्ट्स एक्सेट्रा कैन कम अंडर जीएसटी, बट वोंट इट बी अ लॉस टू स्टेट गवर्नमेंट. सी बेटा, जब जीएसटी आया तब भी कुछ स्टेट को लॉस हुआ ही ना, इसीलिए तो उन्होंने सारी चीजों को एक साथ जीएसटी में नहीं लाया. स्टेट ने यही कहा कि एक बार आप इसे जीएसटी के बाहर रखो, किसे, पेट्रोलियम को, थोड़ा जीएसटी स्टेबलाइज होने दो, हमको थोड़ा सा जीएसटी से एक रेवेन्यू बैलेंस होने दो, फिर हम फ्यूचर में पेट्रोलियम वगैरह पे भी जीएसटी लाएंगे. सो इन फ्यूचर व्हेनेवर they will feel, they will bring petroleum in GST. Now see, अगर हम सब लोग यही सोचते कि नहीं इससे मेरा लॉस है, तो फिर वैसे तो आज सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट का भी लॉस है। आपने अभी देखा ना, टोबैको प्रोडक्ट्स पे सेंट्रल एक्साइज ड्यूटी लग रहा है। सेम चीज पेट्रोलियम प्रोडक्ट्स पे भी लग रहा था, आज भी लग ही रहा है। आपको देखा ही आपने वहां पे। अब अगर ऐसा है तो फिर तो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट का भी लॉस होने वाला है पूरा। सो इट इज नॉट दैट कि मेरा लॉस होगा तो वैसे तो फिर कोई चीज आगे बढ़ेगी नहीं। करेक्ट। Mustafa, compensation says when it get levied for 5 years, it is levied on sin goods. Yes, जब वो levy था 5 साल, it was only on two things, sin goods and luxury goods. So आपको लग्जरी पे भी लगता था, जैसे मोटर कार इज नॉट sin goods, उस पे भी लगता था क्योंकि वो लग्जरी गुड्स है। Now I have an interesting question for you all. Till now, whatever we studied, we saw different names of taxes. Now, some taxes are named as tax, like here. You see, some are called as luxury tax, sales tax, entry tax, income tax. But some are called as duty, like excise duty, customs duty. Now, my question to you all is there a difference between a tax and a duty? Okay, Samiran, that I'll explain. But let me first make the basics clear, because what you're asking कि GST कौन सा लगेगा SEZ पे, वो थोड़ा सा आगे का पॉइंट है. Let us go step by step. So, my question to everyone, is there a difference? I've already asked the question, Harshal. Some are called as taxes, some are called as duty. So today you have something called as excise duty, you have something called as customs duty, and at the same time you have something called as sales tax, you have something called as service tax, you have something called as goods and services tax, you have something called as income tax. So my question is there a difference between tax and duty? If there is difference, you have to tell me what is the difference. Okay, Manisha is very sincerely saying, sir, there is a difference, but I don't know. Okay, no problem. Others, who knows what is the difference? So there is a difference. So I'm also telling you there is a difference. What is the difference? No, center and state is not the difference. You'll find tax in both and duty in both. So Harshal, that is not the difference. No, but again, Divya, this is not the reason. Okay, pay attention. What Harshal is saying. So the answer is no of question. हर्षल, आपकी काफी बातें मेरे तो आधी समझ में नहीं आती what you are saying. Okay, anyways, let me tell you what is the difference. To understand this, you have to first understand a concept called as taxable event. What is taxable event? In every taxation law, you have this concept called as taxable event. Taxable event is that thing, that action on which a tax is levied. Means, I'll give you example. Income tax is levied on the taxable event of earning income. So earning income becomes a taxable event. It means only if you earn income, then only you have to pay tax. So earning income is the taxable event for income tax. Similarly, for customs, what is the taxable event? Importing or exporting goods. So if you have imported or exported goods, then only you have to pay customs duty. So importing, exporting becomes the taxable event for customs. Similarly, for sales tax, what is the taxable event? You have to sell the goods. So selling is the taxable event. Now, once you have understood what is the meaning of taxable event, now let us understand what is the difference. Where you first do the taxable event and then afterwards you go and pay the tax, it is called as tax. But where you first pay the tax and then you do the taxable event, it is duty. So don't be carried away by the word duty. Duty means it is your duty to pay. No, both are duties to pay. Both are compulsory. Nothing is optional. But the difference in name is because there is a difference in their mechanism. So पहले भरो फिर वो काम करो, that is duty. पहले वो काम करो फिर भरो, that is tax. Now you can check for anything wherever you are reading tax and duty. This rule will give you the correct answer. Like customs, you first pay the custom duty, then only you are allowed to bring goods into India or take goods out of India. That is, after paying custom duty only, you can do import or export. So पहले भरो फिर करो. That is why duty. Similarly, earlier there was something called as octroi duty. Today also you have something called as stamp duty. What is stamp duty for? You want to register your documents. You have purchased some movable property, you want to get it registered. What is the rule? First pay the stamp duty and come to me. Then I will register your documents and make your deed formal and legal. You first go and pay the stamp duty. In fact, it happens that you pay the stamp duty 2 or 3 days earlier and then later on your document gets finally registered. So पहले भरो फिर करो, duty. Tax is you are first doing the sale. You are first earning income. In case of GST, you are first doing the supply. And afterwards, you go and pay. So, पहले करो, बाद में भरो. That is tax. Students, I hope you all got this difference. Very important. Is this clear to all? Okay, Purav has a question. Sir, why custom works like this? Reason is it will be difficult to collect tax later. Once the goods are gone, how can you see? The purpose is why I want to collect first because later on I feel I cannot have control. If things are going out of India, how you'll have control on them? So first pay, then go. That is why pehle bharo, fir karo. That is duty. Understood, students? Okay. So now this is the list of those taxes and duties which are subsumed to make the common tax called as GST. So few are central, few are state. Total 17 different taxes and duties have been merged to make it a single tax called as GST, though GST is also called as dual tax. Dual why? Because both governments have the power together, but otherwise it is a single tax. Single means for all these transactions now there will be one tax only called as GST. Correct? Fine. So now here we'll take our break. After the break, we will proceed to complete the remaining pointers. So we take our 15 minutes break now. proceed with some more important aspects of this topic. Now, what is the next part? Benefits of GST to various stakeholders. First is benefit to economy. Creation of unified national market. Now, what is unified national market? As I explained earlier, prior to GST, every state had their separate VAT laws, plus every state had different taxes. It was very difficult for a person to do business within India in different states because every state you had to study a separate law, take a separate registration, the procedures would be different. A pen would be exempt in one state, so in other state it would be taxable at 5, and in some other state it would be taxable at 13. So there was lot of variation, and this variation created a lot of confusion, lot of practical challenges in actually doing business within different states. Now, this has been totally removed because of GST being the unified tax. Second, since now you are having a single GST, since now the cascading effect is removed, it helps in lowering price. It will also boost the Make in India initiative because earlier when foreign countries were approached for making investment in India, they had the common challenge that no, your taxation is very complicated, you have multiple rates. So government wanted to remove this anomaly. This was one biggest reason of pushing in for GST. Now, because of having same rate structure across India, even foreign investments are ready to come in because now they find Indian taxation at least understandable. And then because of all these reasons, the businesses are growing. We are getting more and more investments, and this is also creating more employment opportunities within India. Now, how is the tax structure simplified? We have less number of laws. Rather, we have only the GST related laws for all businesses. So at least now you do same business in different states or you do different businesses, you don't have to study different laws. This makes it easy for a businessman. Like you have many businessmen who are having diversified portfolios. They are doing multiple businesses, including hotel, including manufacturing, including contract, including your accounting, taxation. So people are doing multifold businesses, but they know that whatever business they do, they have to follow the same tax law. So this has simplified it a lot. Similarly, from the side of the department also, since now there is single tax, there is more clarity. So it has brought in certainty. It has brought in simplification because now people know for sure what will be the tax when they are doing a business. Another thing is automated procedures. As we saw the GST portal, now everything is done online. Physical methods are removed. Plus now across India, you have the same form, same procedures, and everything is run sitting at your home or at your office using your laptop. So to that extent, GST has simplified the procedural part, which is called as compliance. Similarly, in the compliance part, now since the number of laws are reduced, since the number of procedures are reduced, it is easy for people to do compliance. Compliance means following whatever the law has provided. What is the advantages to the businesses, that is the trade and the industry? First advantage is that the overall tax burden has been reduced. Firstly, because multiple taxes have been removed, and also within GST also, you will find that in next 2 years, the tax rates would be even further lowered. So definitely lowering of taxes brings in more business to the business industry because people spend more when tax rates are reduced, and it brings in lot of benefits to the industry. Similarly, all the ill effects of previous taxation law like multiple taxation, tax on tax, cascading effect, all have been removed, thereby leading to a better business environment. Plus, the seamless flow of credit, whatever one person is charging, the other is getting credit, the other is charging, the third person is getting credit. This is the seamless flow, which is also helping business because it is reducing the cascading effect. Now, if you are a small business, you are also benefited. Why? Again, let us say you are like a kirana shop having multiple items. Earlier, you were covered in different laws for different goods. Now that has all been removed. Now you are covered in a single law. Plus, we studied something called as composition scheme above. where simplified procedures are provided to you by opting for the composition scheme provisions. Now coming to something very technical. We discussed this at the start in the previous class only. Now it will be in more detail. We studied that India is divided into states, plus we have at the center another government. So that is why we say that we are following a federal structure. Now, all of this is driven by our constitution. I gave you a brief of that we got freedom on 15th August, but we actually became republic on 26th of January when we passed the constitution. And that is why we celebrate Independence Day and Republic Day separately. Now, what is this constitution? So constitution is the mother law. Constitution defines how the country will run. Constitution provides how governments would be formed, how elections would be held, how government would take various actions and decisions. Everything is provided in this constitution, which is the mother law. In fact, all other laws are created on the basis of the powers given through constitution. Now, Constitution has total 448 sections. But if you remember, I had mentioned that in Constitution, we don't call them as sections, we call them as articles. But for your reference, I call them as sections. And these 448 articles are covered in 25 parts. So you can understand that these are 25 chapters. There is a preamble. Preamble is the preface, like how every book has a preface. So the preface of the Constitution, which gives you the overview of the Constitution, is called as preamble. Further, besides the entire constitution, you have 12 schedules in the constitution. Now comes some important articles relating to tax. Before that, let me go through your questions. Sir, is today break? I think there is already break done. Achha, it was the question before the break. Maitri, sir, value added tax means a distributor, wholesaler, retailers put some additional amount. In your example, distributor 20, 30, 50, yes. So these value added amounts, are they charging for their benefit? Yes, because see, when I run business, I'm incurring expenses plus I want profit. So my expenses plus profit is the total value addition. So I have the purchase cost, which is my outside cost, plus then I incur cost for running this business. And plus I want my profit, which I can take home. This is total value addition. Full form of GDP is gross domestic product. I have one doubt regarding import purchase. If I import 1 crore and pay 10 lakhs duty, and this I pay 1.8 lakhs tax, the import base value we declare or not? No, beta. In 3B, you do not declare import value. Bhavani. Okay. Now coming to Constitution. The most important article of Constitution relating to taxation is Article 265. What does this article says? This article says that nobody can charge you tax until and unless the power or the authority is given to them, and how this authority is given, that is provided in Article 245. So powers are distributed through Article 245. We discussed this in detail in the previous class also and today in the revision also. But before that, Article 265 says that without having the power given, and that power is given in 246, not 245. So without having the power, you cannot levy tax. Now this basically is the statement for the parliament, that without the parliament having the power, you cannot levy tax. Now we have Article 245, what it deals with. Part 11 of the Constitution deals with the relationship between the center and the states. The power for enacting laws conferred on the parliament and on the legislature by Article 245. So 265 said that you should pass a law. 245 says that how you will pass the law. That 245 says that we will divide the power to pass the law between center and state. And where this division is given, this division is given in Article 246, which says that go to Schedule 7. In Schedule 7, we have divided the powers in these three lists, which is List 1, List 2, and List 3. Some examples are given. So entries 82 to 91 of List 1 deals with the powers for levying taxes. Similarly, entries 45 to 63 of List 2 deals with power to levy taxes of the state. And then some examples of these powers are given. Now, In order to bring in GST, we studied you require an independent separate power, not like 246, because 246 gave either individual powers or concurrent powers, but we wanted joint powers. So for giving these joint powers, we amended the constitution, which is today called as the 101st Constitution Amendment Act 2016. This was done to bring in the GST law, and in that we added Article 246A. Now the question comes, what was the need for this constitutional amendment? This we discussed that earlier either state or center had the powers, but there was no provision for joint powers. So to bring in these joint powers, we had to amend the constitution. Now how this joint power will be exercised? It will be exercised through the GST Council. So we added one more article 279A, which dealt with the powers of GST Council, or which dealt with how GST Council will be created and how GST Council will operate. Now, some important provisions of this 101st Constitution Amendment Act, which was done to bring in GST. Okay. So what is given? Concurrent powers of Parliament, that is center and state, to make laws governing taxes, levy of IGST on interstate transaction of goods and service to be levied and collected only by the central, and then apportioned between the center and the state. Which state? We all know the destination state. Then most important, how to decide destination. For this also, they said that we will make rules for determining which is the destination state. Now, interestingly, the entire GST Act, you will nowhere find the word destination. Though we are saying that GST is a destination-based tax, but nowhere in the Act they have used the word destination or consumption. So how do you come to know what is destination or what is consumption? Remember this word. For destination, they have used the word place of supply. So wherever they say that this state is the place of supply, it means that state is the destination state. Next, GST will be levied on all goods and services except alcoholic liquor for human consumption. I already explained that this cannot come under GST because of Schedule 7 List 2. However, petroleum products, they are for the time being kept outside GST, but they can anytime come under GST. So these five are for the time being kept outside. Tobacco, tobacco products, opium, Indian hemp, on this both taxes are levied, old and new both. 279A of the Constitution has given power to the President to form a joint forum of center and states called as the Council. The provisions relating to GST Council were implemented or came into force on 12th of September 16, and using this power, the President constituted the Council on 15th September. So from that day, the Council is functioning, and whatever GST law you are studying today, everything in the GST law is made by the Council. Now, who is part of this council? The Union Finance Minister is the head, so she is the chairman, and the ministers of finance or taxation of each state or the minister nominated by each state are the members. Besides, the Union Minister of State in charge of revenue or finance is also its members. The function of council is, now what is the function? To give recommendations to both center and the state about everything relating to GST, like rate of tax, exemption, threshold limits, etc. Importantly, in the old tax laws, you had a concept called as goods of special importance. So some goods were identified or declared as goods of special importance, and then there were multiple restrictions which were put on such goods sales. This concept has been removed. So now under GST, there are no goods which are declared as of special importance. Next, some transitional provisions were also brought in so that if there is any inconsistency between the old law and the new law, that can be resolved. So see, when you are changing from old law to new law, there will always be a problem that some transactions would be such that part of the transaction is in the old law and part is in the new law. For example, we have started this batch. Now this batch, let us say, started in August, and let us say the law has changed from 1st of Jan. Now, some part of the batch is in the previous law and some part is in the new law. For such cases, how to handle it? For them, you have some special provisions called as the transitional provisions, where it is provided how you will handle this overlapping. Now going to these changes in detail. So they brought in Article 246A, which gives the power to both center and the state to levy GST. How? Sub-Article 1 says, notwithstanding anything contained in 246, that is the old article, and 254, Parliament and subject to clause 2, the legislature. So both are given joint powers. Parliament as well as the state will have powers to make laws with respect to GST. But now they are saying this is subject to clause 2. Why? Because clause 2 says that in respect of interstate transactions, only Parliament has the power. So for interstate, state is not having the power, only Parliament is having the power. Further, what does the explanation says? The provisions of this article shall, in respect of GST, referred to in clause 5 of section 279A, take effect from a date to be recommended by the council. Now see, all these were passed earlier, but they had not decided when GST would be starting. So everywhere you will find this word shall take effect from a date to be decided. And then eventually this date was decided to be 1st July for implementation of GST. Similarly, for different provisions, different dates were notified. So Article 246A basically does what? It grants power to both center and state to bring GST. However, center will have only powers in case of interstate supply, and in respect of falling goods, the aforesaid provisions shall apply from the date to be decided. What are these goods? These are the 5 petroleum products. They will come in GST, but at some future date, which will be decided. Now, this Article 246A is overriding 246, which is the earlier article for levying taxes, and also 254. What is 254? 254 deals with the supremacy of the laws made by the Parliament. Next, Article 248. What is it? Residuary powers of legislation amended. Article 248 grants the residuary power to Parliament to make laws with respect to any matter which is not covered in the concurrent list. Now, importantly, this article gives only center the power that if there is no specific name given in any of the list, you have the power to make that particular law. However, after GST, this power was reduced because GST is not covered in Schedule 7. It is covered separately in 246A. So this article has been amended. Now this power has been subjected to 246A, which means what? That now center alone cannot charge GST under the residuary power. Next, power of Parliament to legislate with respect to matters in state list in the national interest in case of emergency extended to GST provided under 246. So what is this? Article 249 grants the Parliament the power to make laws with respect to matters in the state list in case of national interest. In a case where Council of States have declared by resolution supported by not less than 2/3 of the members present and voting. So where the state itself provides that it is in national interest that some actions should be taken by Parliament, the Parliament, as per Article 249, has the powers to make laws in respect of those matters also which were otherwise covered under the state list. Why? Because the state by 2/3 majority have given that power to center. Similarly, Article 250 grants the Parliament the power to make laws with respect to any of the matters enumerated in the state list if a proclamation of emergency is in operation. So if emergency is declared, then the center will get powers on everything. Now, both these articles, 249 and 50, have been amended to provide power to Parliament to make laws with GST under 246A, also along with the matters in state list in case of national emergency, etc. So both the above points are now including GST as well. Next, Article 268, duties levied by center but collected and appropriated by state. Now, what is this point? This is important for that IGST point. So IGST today will be collected by state, but later on the state has to give it to states. Sorry, the will be collected by center and later on the center has to give it to states. So Article 268 pertains to the duties levied by the center but collected and appropriated by the states. It stipulates that such stamp duties and duties of excise on medicinal toilet preparations are mentioned in union list shall be levied by the government but shall be collected in the case where duties are levied. Now this constitution amendment omits and such duties of excise, etc. Why? Because now this has come under GST. So this article was amended because they wanted to bring GST under the both central and state list both. Now, a new Article 268A, what it deals with? Article 268A, empowering union to levy service tax, is omitted. So since now no more service tax is required, so the Article 268A, which gave the power to the center to levy service tax, is no more required. So this article has been removed. Now what is of very prime importance is Article 269A. But before that, let me take the queries. Yes, Nilesh, we will do that. As we proceed with our syllabus, we will discuss about paper patterns and weight of every chapters. No, Manisha, you don't have to learn these articles at all. It is only for your knowledge. No, beta, COVID pandemic, the Article 249-50 were not, because it was not a declaration of emergency. Nor in 249, see 249 applies where the state through two-third majority gives that power, which did not happen. And 250, it was not a national emergency declared. So in pandemic period, none of these articles applied. Alman says, how does GST works from raw material purchase to final sale of raw material? Yes, you'll understand everything. Virashri is asking, what is the meaning of residuary powers? See, residuary means where there is no power given to any person, then the center has the power for that particular item. So residuary means which is the whatever is left over, that is what is residuary. So see, it is not practically possible for constitution to visualize everything and write everything in the constitution. So if something is left out, then this particular article gives power to the center that if it is not covered in any of the list, you can levy tax or you can exercise that power. Yes, Sushmita says, sir, in Article 268 it is mentioned that duties are collected and appropriated by state, but we understand that center collects the GST. Not sure if my understanding is correct. You are very correct, Beda. So that is why these articles were amended. See, Article 268A said that duty will be collected by state. But now for IGST, we want the center to collect the duty and give it to states. That is why these articles had amendment. So your understanding is correct, but this article is, that is why amended. Now we come to an important article. So see, there are 2-3 articles which are important, which I will say you should learn. 246A you should learn. Second, 269A you should learn, or you should know. Now what does 269A deals with? Levy and collection of GST in case of interstate trade or commerce. Now, for interstate trade or commerce, 269A says that we will first give the entire power to the center. Let it levy and collect, and then let it give it to the state. So what is given? GST on supplies which is in the course of interstate trade or commerce. In short, we are talking about IGST. What they are saying, it shall be collected and levied both by the government of India. So for IGST, both levy and collection will be done by center, and then it will be apportioned by the center between center and the states in the manner as may be provided. So for IGST, the power has been given exclusively to center. Virashri, I hope this will be, not Virashri, Sushmita, I hope now it will be clear to you. Explanation: for the purpose of this clause, supply of goods or service or both in the course of import into the territory of India shall be deemed to be supply in the course of interstate trade. So the second point that you get to know from 269A is that imports will also be deemed to be interstate. So first it said for interstate, exclusively the power is of center. Second, it is saying you will deem that imports are also interstate. Next, the amount apportioned to state under clause 1 shall not form part of consolidated fund. So this amount which the state is collecting is not the revenue of the center. So center is only temporarily collecting it, but it will not become part of consolidated fund. See, consolidated fund is the money of center permanently. But the amount to be given to state is not the money of the center. Center has only temporarily collected it. So that is what is clarified in clause 2, that center cannot transfer the amount to the consolidated fund. Which amount? The amount which has to be apportioned to the states. Now, where an amount collected as tax under clause 1 has been used for payment of tax levied by state under Article 246A, such amount shall not form part of consolidated fund. So same point, whatever amount is collected in clause 1, that is the IGST, and it has been used for payment of tax which is levied by state. So this also will go to the state because it is used for their tax. Where an amount collected as tax levied by a state under Article 246A has been used for payment of tax levied in clause 1, such amount again shall not form. So basically from all these articles, what they are trying to say is that whatever pertains to state cannot become part of consolidated fund. And what it means, it cannot become or it cannot be treated as money of the center. So center is only temporarily collecting it, but it is not the money of the center. And then clause 5 says how to determine place of supply, because place of supply is the most crucial part, because that is what is the destination. That will be decided by the parliament. So the parliament will formulate principles, rules for determining place of supply. And when supply of goods or service shall take place in the course of import or export. Ronak, beta, you are asking for WhatsApp link, but I think WhatsApp link was shared multiple times earlier. It is already shared earlier, beta, multiple times, if I'm not wrong. Today itself, WhatsApp link was shared. Anyways, I'll request technical team to reshare it here. Yeah, so beta Purva, that is why I said that clause 234 means one and the same. So basically what clause 234 is saying, that whatever is the money of state, even though you have collected, it cannot go to your consolidated fund. It will only go to the states whenever you apportion it. Correct? Then Article 270, distribution of GST between center and state. Now, Article 270 is amended to provide for distribution of GST between center and state by the order of President after considering recommendation of Finance Commission. This applies to those tax amounts apportioned or payable to the central government for taxes levied by it under 246A 1 and 2 and clause 1 of 269. Fine. Then what is amendment in 270? So basically 270 amendment is simple. Now whatever is the tax collected, it will also have the share of state. Then 271 says Article 271 empowers Parliament to increase any of the duties or taxes referred to in 269 or 70. It further provides that such surcharge is not shareable and remains with center. So you can say indirectly this is the power for levying the compensation cess, which says that Parliament shall have the power to increase any of the duties or taxes, and most important, it is not shareable and it remains with center. So this is the compensation cess. Next, definition of GST services states. Now this is important. How is GST defined? GST is defined as GST means goods and service tax, means any tax on supply of goods or services or both, except, so in the definition itself they have kept liquor outside, so it can never come under GST. Consequently, GST can be levied on all except liquor. Most interestingly, we were levying service tax since 1994, but we never had a definition in the Constitution. Constitution defined services for the first time. How? Service means anything other than goods. Goods definition is already there in the Constitution. So what is not goods is service. What is goods? The term goods has already been defined under clause 12 of this article. How it is defining? It is saying goods means all materials, commodities and articles. So anything which is in the form of material commodity will be called as goods. And what is service? Other than all materials, everything else is service. Now, most important, what is the definition of state? State with reference to all these articles will also include the union territory which is having a parliament. This is what I was talking about earlier also, that we have Delhi, we have Puducherry. These are some of the states which also has a parliament. Sorry, these are some of the union territories which have a parliament. So wherever a union territory is having a parliament, it will not be treated like a union territory, it will be treated like a state. So even though it is a union territory, but since it has a parliament, it will be treated as a state, at least for the purpose of GST. Then what is Article 286 dealing with? Article 286 imposes restriction as to imposition of tax on sale or purchase of goods. Now, what is the amendment? So firstly, Article 286 restrains the state from framing laws for imposition of any tax on sale or purchase of goods which such sale or purchase takes outside their state. Now, this is very important. This is an old article. This was more applicable in the pre-GST era where you had separate laws for center and states. What did this article do? This article put a restriction on the states saying that you cannot levy tax on any such sale which is happening outside your state or which is in the nature of import export. So basically 286 was imposing restriction on states that you cannot levy tax on such transactions. Now this article has been amended to incorporate the changes arising out of GST. How? By substituting the word sale or purchase with supply and the word goods with goods or services or both. So the restriction continues, but it simply says now that now the states cannot levy any tax on supply of goods, services, or both. So consequently, states have no rights to impose GST on interstate supply. So this is also helping the center by not allowing the states to collect tax on interstate supplies. Then the third article, which is important for you, is 279. So first is 246A, 269A, and then 279A. How is 279A important or why it is important? Because it deals with the GST Council. So firstly, 279A empowers the president to constitute a joint forum of center and state, which is called as the council. This provision came into force on 12th of September and the president constituted it on 15th of September. Council consists of the Union Finance Minister, who is the head chairperson, and the other ministers who are the members. The members of the council shall, as soon as choose amongst them as vice chairman. So chairman is fixed, it is the central finance minister, but between the other members from each state, they will select one of them as the vice chairman. Now, GST Council shall make recommendations to the union and states on what points? One, what taxes, what cesses, what surcharges to be levied, which may be subsumed in GST. So first, it was the role of the council to recommend which taxes they want to subsume in GST. Second, goods and services that may be subjected to or exempted from GST. So what things will be leviable to GST or what will be exempted from GST. Third, model GST laws, principles of levy apportionment of GST on supplies in the course of interstate trade or commerce. So third thing they were supposed to do is to prepare the model laws for levying GST. Then threshold limit of turnover up to which you need not take registration. Then the rates, then the special rates, special provision with respect to special category states, and any other matter. So these were the powers given to the council. Further, the council shall recommend the date on which the goods and services tax shall be levied on petroleum products. So as we know, till date, no such date is provided, but the power is with the council. Next, while discharging the functions conferred by this article, the council shall be guided by the need for a harmonized structure of GST and for the development. So fine. Most important is this part. 1/2 of the total number of members shall constitute the quorum. It means at least 50% members should be present. Otherwise, that meeting will not be considered as a valid meeting. It will not be considered as a quorum. Council shall determine the procedures in the performance of its functions. Now, another important point. How will decisions be taken? If you remember in the previous class, I had said it would be by majority. Now, how is this majority counted? So every decision of the GST Council shall be taken at the meeting by a majority of not less than 3/4 of the weighted votes. So we do not want simple 50% majority. We want 75% majority. Now, how is this 75% counted? By taking the weighted votes. Now, what is the weighted votes? The weights are the vote of central government is having a weightage of 1/3 of total votes. So out of the total votes cast, one vote of central government itself is given the weight of 1/3. And the votes of all state governments together shall have the weights of 2/3. And then they will make a weighted average. Next, no act or proceedings of the council shall be invalid. So for these reasons, you cannot treat the council's action invalid. One, any vacancy or any defect in the constitution of council or any defect in the appointment of a person or any procedural irregularity of the council. So these things will not affect any action of the council. Next, the council shall establish a mechanism to adjudicate and dispute. Which dispute? Dispute between the government and the state, dispute between the government and any state, or between one or more states. So for all these disputes, the council will decide how to handle the dispute. So this is the third article, which is very, very important, which you should learn. So these are the three articles which I will suggest you should compulsorily learn. Next is 368 was amended. Why or how? What was the amendment? 368 has been amended to include the reference of Article 2679A, that is the reference of council. Consequently, at least 2/3 of the majority in each house of the parliament and ratification by at least half of the state is specifically required to make any amendment in 279A possible. So that's it. So students, these are the various provisions. So this is how the entire GST journey happened. Now, interestingly, in the year 2000, the then Prime Minister had introduced the concept of GST. However, after that, in 2003, the government changed. You had the UPA government. Then in UPA, in 2006-7, the finance minister said that we will bring GST by 1st April. However, because of political reasons, this could not happen. Then as the new government came up in 2014, they brought in the Constitution Amendment Bill, which was finally passed in 2016. After passing the Constitution Amendment Bill, immediately the first council meeting was held. If you remember, the date was 15th of September. Then in March, various GST related bills were introduced. In April, these bills became Act. Then in May, the rules were also formed. Then on 30th of June, all states except JK, that is Jammu and Kashmir, passed their respective state GST acts. So finally, GST was launched on 1st July. Then Jammu Kashmir joined on 8th of July. So this is the whole timeline of the GST journey. And students, I'll just tell you, I don't know how many of you all have referred our modules, this part, which is called as let us recapitulate. If you refer this, this is the best way of summarizing the notes. Even when you are summarizing the notes, please follow this mechanism. Fine, students. So let's see if there are any questions. Manisha is asking, what are the important articles? 3 articles, beta. 246A, 269A, 279. These are the 3 articles which are relevant, which you should learn. Alman, beta, we will be discussing approach for preparation, studying the subject, approach for exams. But in short, my first humble request to everyone is, please ensure that you are present regularly. Please ensure that you read that chapter again at home. Please ensure that wherever there are practicals, you will be solving them by yourself. These are the basic initial instructions that Alman, I would like to give to everyone. If you do this, I assure you, you'll get the best marks in taxation paper.
Hello, sir.
Yes, beta, tell me.
My first question: if any unregistered as a in the chain of a supply from the wholesaler to retailer, from manufacturer to the final consumer, in case any from that chain is unregistered till the retailer. So, where to we shift the tax burden?
But wherever the person is unregistered, the tax burden will come on that person, because after that, nobody can charge the tax. So once you're unregistered, you cannot charge the tax. So the person who is unregistered becomes the consumer. So let us say retailer is unregistered. So retailer will become the consumer in that chain. So the tax burden will come on the retailer.
Okay, sir. And second question is on a study material, page number 1.39.
Hmm.
In that eighth article 268, point
Hmm.
number 2 of that
Hmm.
is a
Hmm.
in that CAA omits and such a duties of exercise of on medical and toilets. In that, sir, the CAA means what is the full form of that?
Constitution Amendment Act. What we
Okay,
are
sir.
talking about. 101st Constitution Amendment Act.
Okay, sir. Understood. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So students, so Bhavani, you had this question. Sir, please explain about DTC. But a DTC is no more applicable. DTC was earlier planned in 2016 that the government will replace Income Tax Act by Direct Tax Code. Later on, they dropped it, and now Income Tax Act itself is getting amended by the name, which remains same as Income Tax. So earlier, Income Tax was going to be replaced by Direct Tax Code. Now it is not being changed. Is this clear? No, Sridhar, beta, there is no assignment. So nothing for this chapter right now. See, this chapter is more for understanding the law. So don't take burden that what we have to write, what we have to solve. Nothing from this chapter has to be solved. Fine. So that's it from my side, student. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. It was great time discussing the subject with you all. So keep studying and please, please be regular in the class because you can view these all lectures recorded. But when you're regular, I'm sure you'll understand more. The sincerity will be more and it will be easy for you to retain what we are discussing in the class. Yes, Siddhant Beda.
हेलो
Yes, Siddhant, tell me.
हेलो सर, जैसे यहाँ पे हम देख रहे हैं बहुत सारे मतलब आर्टिकल्स दिए हुए हैं, बट मेन जो आर्टिकल जिसे मतलब सारे अमेंडेड है, बट हमें जिस आर्टिकल से मतलब काम है वो तो मेनली 246A है एक्चुअली, है ना?
3 है बेटा, मैंने बता दिया। 246A, 269A, 279 है। आपको सिर्फ ये 3 को ध्यान में रखना है मेनली।
ओके सर, थैंक यू।
या थैंक यू। गुड डे, टेक केयर। यस मनीष जी, थैंक यू।